So, hello everyone. My name is Larry Cole, and I'm a host of COVID Impact 360 Conversations. Today, I have a guest back who we did a session, I think, about 6 weeks ago, might have been seven, and his name is Dr. Teitelbaum, and Jacob Teitelbaum, and he's written many books. But one of the books he's written, which is right, if you look over his shoulder, you're going to see a book called From Fatigue to Fantastic. And during that conversation, Jacob started talking about a protocol that he's developed through his experience of being a doctor and helping people with conditions. And this protocol was called S.H.I.N.E. And we promised, and if you go back and watch that segment, we promised during that segment that he would come back and he would actually go into detail about this protocol. So welcome, Jacob. Sorry for the long intro, but welcome.
Larry, glad to be with you and to be with all you folks out there. I just want to say I've had the disease you have. Been there, done that.
Yeah,
Happy
yeah.
to teach you how to get on the other side of it.
That's great. So I think just for the sake of the audience, if they don't go back and watch the first video, maybe a little bit about your background and a little bit about how you came into even being involved in developing a protocol.
Well, back in 1975, I was in med school. I was one of the youngest kids in my class. Had finished college, paying my own way through college in about 2.5 years. Working because my dad was dead, and doing all these different things, rolling through med school. All of that was the easiest part of my life. And then there were like some family chaoses. I made the mistake of being caught in the middle of being the peacemaker, as we often do with people with these illnesses. Got this nasty viral syndrome. It was just kind of what I call the drop dead flu. It was obvious to my professors that there was a nasty viral infection on the blood test. Couldn't isolate the virus. But 6 weeks later, I was still non functioning. 3 months later, still couldn't function, couldn't work, which meant I couldn't pay my rent and had to drop out of med school. I was homeless, sleeping in parks. By 3 months, they figured, well, any infection should be gone. So we can't find anything. Tests are normal now. So it must be depressed medical student syndrome. And that was the context, homeless on a park bench. That led me to start to developing what I needed to do to recover. And I was able to recover, get back to med school, get my honors in medicine. And I spent the last 50 years researching, writing, and teaching about post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. And
Sure.
long COVID is one form of that.
All right. So I'm just going to kind of fast forward just a little bit. So now you're involved in the pandemic. You've got this experience behind you in dealing with post viral. We start to talk about this globally as if it's something. We don't quite know what it is. I know you've got an insight. So let's talk about from the point that you have this insight to how you started to develop a specific protocol.
It was kind of like the five blind men and the elephant. Everybody was saying, "Oh, it's a snake." No, it's a tree trunk. It's that whole thing.
Right.
And most of the medicine was wandering in the woods, going, "No, there's nothing here." And I got to learn as a clinical researcher how medicine works in terms of, well, we need a definition, we need a test, we need
Mm-hmm.
all these things that take about 30 years to develop. Then we can start looking at a cure. And whatever cure we do needs two qualifications. One, it needs to be god awful expensive or can't survive our system,
Okay. Yeah.
which means it has to be patentable. And you need it to be a magic bullet, because if you have something with 8 different treatments that are needed to get well, you can't put it through the FDA process. They will only, with rare exceptions, you need a single treatment to go through the process. I learned early on that it hits so many systems that you need to gently get many systems back into balance, and then the body heals up. Once I understood that, I was able to go ahead and start to develop, well, how about the sleep aspects? And we see all these hormonal and immune problems and blah, blah, blah. And then piece by piece, I put it together and found out it get better and better and better. And that's what led to the S.H.I.N.E protocol.
Okay. So for people that are listening right now or watching this video, this is S.H.I.N.E. Let's go through each of those letters to kind of understand what this protocol is.
Good. So S.H.I.N.E is an acronym for restoring energy production in the body. Think of this illness, long COVID, as an energy crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your body has faced an infection, it shuts down energy production to go ahead and starve the virus. And then sometimes there's little pieces of the virus remain. The body doesn't know the infection's gone, keeps shutting it
Yeah.
down. It trips a circuit breaker that can called the hypothalamus gland in the brain, almond-sized area, which controls sleep, hormone, blood pressure, temperature, autonomic function, all of these different things. So now S.H.I.N.E is the acronym for restoring energy production, turning the circuit breaker back on, getting your immune system strong enough to do the final search and destroy and get rid of all these little pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're of the mRNA or the viral DNA, whatever spike protein most common seems to be what persists. It's basically like pirates have, if you're throwing the hooks over the ship that they're trying to board, and the hooks are like the spike protein, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't always take all the hooks back when they leave. The ship is set. Hooks means pirates, and even though the pirates have long gone. Anyway, blah
Yeah.
blah blah. To get better, write this down. S.H.I.N.E. S stands for sleep, because many of you are starting to find that you have trouble getting restful, restorative sleep. And after about a year with the illness, people start to develop trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, all these kind of sleep issues. H would be the hormones. We talk about this control center, controls sleep, controls your entire hormone system, thyroid, adrenal, reproductive, salt and water retaining. It also controls blood pressure and pulse, what's called autonomic function. So you get what's called POTS. You stand up, blood rushes down to your
Yep.
legs.
Yep.
You may get a little lightheaded. Most people don't notice lightheadedness, but what they will notice if they've been standing upright, especially in one place, like standing in line for 20 minutes, they start to get brain fogged and a bit fuzzy, and then they feel tired the next day and exhausted. I would be the infections. What happens with many infections, including COVID, is it triggers a jailbreak of other infections, things like Epstein-Barr virus, Candida, even old Lyme, many, many different infections. And this overwhelms the immune system. It's kind of like if you're trying to break into a bank or something. You go ahead and you trigger all the alarms you can, draw all the guards, the immune system off to fight all these other infections, and it takes the heat off of you. So you'll see numerous co-infections that occur in long COVID. The I is also for inflammation. If you have organ damage, you had a stroke, you had heart disease, you lost taste and smell, all these other things, the inflammation, the free radicals may still be causing those to continue to smolder. It's like an ongoing fire. And is nutritional support, and E is exercise as able. You do too
Okay.
much, you're going to crash and burn.
So you know that I had long COVID.
Mhm.
So I have never done this on one of my podcasts, but I'm going to relate to you
Mhm.
how long COVID manifested in me and how can you apply your knowledge of this disease to what happened to Larry Cole. So my symptoms were, believe it or not, I started losing hair and I
Mhm.
got a full head of hair, started losing it, still am. Brain fog, something awful that's slowly getting better. Sleep patterns are terrible. And I mean, like maybe 3 hours at a time, 4 hours at a time, and that's kind of max. And then I'll nap several times in a day, and that's getting again very slowly, but getting a little bit better. Fatigue, which is getting better, but not quickly. So that's and aches and pains that are what I'm going to call in the unexplained territory. Like they don't make sense. I know I didn't go build a house full of bricks, and then it's aches and pains because I'm the age I'm at doing that. No, this is aches and pains that would be totally unexplained.
Mhm.
So that's the general genesis of my long COVID.
Mhm.
So I'm your patient now. How do you
Mhm.
apply what you've learned with the S.H.I.N.E protocol to a guy like Larry Cole?
Okay, so basically, what we're talking about, you have the classic symptoms: tired, achy,
Yes.
brain fog, can't sleep.
Yes.
You can see the loss of, I forget if you mentioned loss of smell with that. You'll see, and we'll talk about how to recover when
Right.
you have those things too. But you also noted that there's a number of things that cause hair thinning It's not usually going to be a patch of bald area as much as you brush your hair and it's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, there's more in the brush. And
Yeah.
those are two different things. One is called telogen effluvium. That's the stress, look it up. The stress of many different infections and things cause the hair follicles to all cycle in the same cycle. Usually they're all in random cycles. So they go through the growth cycle, it falls out, the next year grows in. But this causes them all to shift into the same cycle. A lot of them fall out, and it takes about 9 months after the stress is done to start to grow back in. There's a nice little product called Hair Renew that has biotin, a whole bunch of other things that really help the hair regrow. The other thing is low thyroid. Despite normal testing, the thyroid levels of the control center for the thyroid,
Yeah.
hypothalamic pituitary axis. This is work by Professor Gunther Neek. We're both lecturing at the yearly fibromyalgia conference that they had and would move around the world. And he was the main researcher on thyroid in fibromyalgia, including post-viral. And I asked him, are the thyroid tests reliable? And he said, absolutely not. It's because thyroid levels drop 50%, even though the tests stay normal. Remember, medically, we would define a normal income as $8,100 a year. That's what the medical definition, that's what it takes to not be in the lowest 2.5% of the population, called two standard deviations. So if you make 10,000 a year, you're normal. You go from 200,000 to 100,000 a year to 50, the doctor's going to say, that's in the normal range. There's no problem, damn it. I said, how about I drop your income by half? It's like,
Yeah.
then it's a different
Yeah.
story. But
Yeah.
so the thyroid function being low will cause tired, achy, weight gain, cold intolerant, and hair loss. So
Oh,
you see,
okay.
those are the two key factors for that. The achiness is mostly muscle pain. You would find if you
Yeah.
push around, you can find tender knots
Yeah.
because muscles are like a spring. It takes more energy to stretch the spring. And when you don't have enough energy, you get this energy crisis from long COVID.
Oh, isn't that
Muscles lock
interesting?
in the shortened position.
Yeah.
And when they're tight for a couple of weeks or months, they hurt. And that pain will move all around the body because it
Yeah.
hurts here on your hip. So now you shift your weight to the other one to take the load off. And now you've overloaded this hip. Now that's going to hurt. And then it goes to your shoulders. And then it'll go across your forehead and hit down the back of the neck. And, back of the hips also. There's all these classic places where muscles bear the greatest load. Sometimes it can be a heavy load even in carrying a bowling ball on your neck, basically. So it hurts. When the
Yeah.
hurt becomes chronic after a couple of years, it triggers brain pain and nerve pain. That's the progression. Much easier to just nip all that crap in the bud. You just
How do you, when you say this, I can identify it, but how do you manage it?
shine.
Okay.
What we talked about, again, when you don't sleep, your pain won't go away, your energy won't come back,
Right.
your brain fog won't come back. So let's look at each letter of shine for how to manage it.
Okay.
So S is sleep. Number one, you need to make time for sleep. Do that by cutting out things you don't enjoy. You find yourself watching the news. I don't care which side you're watching. It's basically
That's right.
negative propaganda on both sides. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I just kind of I like to look at where there's a field that looks at how do we know what we know,
Right.
and that's an area I'm interested to. And what I find is most things in the media are basically who's paying for this. They're
Right.
nonsense, and they're nonsense meant to scare you to death and make you hate each other because they'll keep you watching. So different thing. Turn that stuff off. Use that time for sleep. The things in your life you don't enjoy and that you won't get fired or homeless if you don't do. Cut them out, make time for sleep. Now, Larry, you're going to say, but I can't sleep. I don't like put my body in bed, and either my mind is wide awake or racing, and I have trouble falling asleep, or I do get to sleep, and then suddenly 2 to 3 in the morning, I'm wide awake. These are the kind of sleep patterns that you see in this disease. So for sleep, I will add melatonin. I use EP120 sustained release 10 milligrams.
Okay.
One melatonin sustained release. I will use a mix of 6 herbs. It's called Revitalizing Sleep Formula. If you prefer essential oils, there's a mix of 4 oils called Terrific ZZZZZ. For the medications for sleep, the medications are actually cheaper because the insurance often pays, and they're old cheap medications than the natural remedies. So for those of you on a tight budget, going with the sleep meds, but the key is you want to use the right ones that are not addictive, and you want to use tiny doses or you're going to be hungover the next day. So trazodone, usual dose 300 to 450
Yeah.
milligrams, not here, 25 to 50 milligrams. Flexeril, 2.5 milligrams. Gabapentin, 100. You don't have to remember all this. You can go ahead and email me. And my email address is fatigue, F-A-T-I-G-U-E, doc, D-O-C. So fatiguedoc@gmail.com, and ask for the long COVID information sheets, and I'll just send it out to you. Shameless plug. For those who like detail, my book From Fatigue is fantastic. It doesn't specifically name long COVID because it came out right before that, but we'll go through this exact same S.H.I.N.E thing and go through, here are the natural remedies, here are the prescription things, here's how to use them, here's how to get them.
Right. Right.
It's just a how to. But if you want something simple, not a textbook, but brain fog friendly, you can heal from long COVID. Nice, short, simple. It will go through with S.H.I.N.E. Here's just, again, what to do, what to get, how to get them, so it's all there. So for sleep, the key is you want to use a low dose of several different things instead of a high dose of one, and adjust it so you get 8 hours of sleep without that's refreshing, without hangover. Having treated countless thousands of people with these conditions, I can count on my fingers how many I've not been able to get that for.
Okay.
So even if you have severe sleep issues, you'll find when you sleep, that even by itself, the pain goes down, energy and cognition go up.
Yeah, actually, that fits well in my brain because if I happen to get a restful sleep, I do feel better. So that all aligns with my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you still take patients, or do you advise?
After 50 years in medicine, I've my body told me it was time to focus on teaching.
Right.
So the books will guide people. There's actually, I hold the U.S. patent for computerized physician. I made it for people for these with these conditions. And we
Okay.
used to, when you put it out, I said, okay, well, we'll charge. You do it. It would give a very detailed, here's what's going on in your case. Here are the things that you need. It was
Yeah.
$400. Everybody wrote, I'm crippled with this illness. I'm destitute. I have no money. And my wife and I said, just make it free to everybody.
Yeah.
So there's actually a program. When you email me for the information, it'll have a website where you can go and put in your detailed history, put in your pertinent lab tests, and it
Yeah.
will print out exactly the things I'm saying and which medications, which natural stuff.
Well,
You
do you
know,
know what? I think, with your permission, I would again like to post this session on YouTube and my other social media channels, but I'd like to have your email address on that if you don't mind.
fatigue,
Yeah, yeah, I've got all that,
DOC.
but do you mind
I,
if I post that?
no, I put
Okay.
that out because people need to have a place where they can get questions answered by somebody who
Yeah.
knows what they're talking about.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to do a whole, people send me an 18-page case history. It's like, no, I'm not going to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
But
Well, that's
if
not.
you
Yeah.
send me like a couple lines of a question,
Yeah.
I get most of those.
Okay. Okay. Well, Jacob, we've done our duty. We've done that follow up on Shine,
No, we
and
haven't. We just did
oh,
S.
okay. Oh, yes. Of course, it's H-I-N-E. Sorry. See, there's my brain. Okay, let's go to H.
Okay. So do we have the hour today, or how long what's optimal? How long would you like to hear today's show?
We got at least 20 more minutes. At
Perfect.
least. Yeah. Yeah. No
Okay.
worries.
Okay.
There's no time constraints here.
Okay. So H is the next step in getting better. And again, you don't have to do all of these things at once. Some of you will just start with a couple things for nutrition and a few things for sleep. And then people find that they add things in one at a time. Others want to jump in the pool and do all of it at once.
Right.
Go with what feels best to you. But H is hormones. What hormones are we talking about? Number one, the adrenal stress hormones. That was some of the earliest research done by Demetrak and Dale at the NIH back, oh God, in last century with CFS, when they barely had a name for it. And they were finding that the adrenal stress hormone axis is suppressed, which means you can't respond to stress, blah, 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 blah. What does that translate to for me? If you get hangry, irritable when hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're not sure if you do, just ask your significant other, honey, do I get irritable when I'm angry? And they'll go, you're not going to hit me if I answer truthfully. I'm teasing, but it's if you get irritable when hungry, you have adrenal fatigue. If you catch every infection that comes around and it takes forever to go away, adrenal fatigue. If you have POTS, where you stand up and the blood pressure, well, the pulse goes up and you may get lightheaded, most often adrenal fatigue. If you're having any of these symptoms, you crash with stress. But basically, if you get irritable and hungry and sugar crave, a simple supplement called Adrenaplex will go ahead, and after a week, it'll really smooth out the energy and help the cravings. And I'll tell you, it's a lot cheaper than a divorce lawyer, because a lot of the reasons people are in marriage counseling and divorce is
Yeah.
they get angry, they get irritable,
Yeah.
and the spouse finally goes like, "I'm done." But it'll smooth out the moods. Also, increase salt and increase water. If you salt restrict with this disease, you will crash and burn. And most of you will find if you have this, eating small meals through the day feels best as opposed to one or two big meals. It's called grazing. High protein, low sugar, and low carb. Fat's fine either way. But the high protein, low carb diets will leave you feeling better. Simple things for adrenal fatigue. Other hormones, thyroid achy, weight gain, cold intolerance. If the outer edges of your eyebrows, see that outer third that's gone here? Because
Mm-hmm.
I had hyperthyroidism that turned to low thyroid. That's low thyroid. And again, we will use the prescription thyroid hormone. You can't treat to the blood tests. As I mentioned earlier, the normal range, and most doctors would be happy if you stay the hell home and just send me a couple of symptoms you have, and I'll send you some prescriptions, and give me, and I want the blood tests. That's what the doctors want. They just humor you by listening to you. And if that test is in the normal range, you're fine. So as we said, most doctors don't know where the normal range comes from. It is defined as two standard deviations, or you're not in the highest or lowest 2% of the population. That's all it means to be in the normal range. So normal shoe size is size 5.5 to 13. Now, I don't know about you, Larry, but if you put me in a size 8 shoe, which is smack dab in the normal range, it's not going to fit. But every shoe doctor in the country will say, but that test is normal, damn it. There's nothing wrong with your shoe. And I say, my toe doesn't get in it. They start going crazy. And most of you have had that experience where you've gone to the doctor and they're starting to blow you off. That's why. Doctors
Okay.
don't know what testing means. Thyroid, treat by symptoms, not by the testing. Thyroid achy, weight gain, cold intolerant. I give the thyroid hormone until it gets to the point. A good multivitamin, the one that I'd recommend is called the Energy Revitalization Drink Mix. Supports thyroid and adrenal function and everything else. But thyroid can be very helpful. Reproductive hormones, 30%, well, 70% of people are in the lowest 30th percentile for the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone.
Okay.
And the symptoms, the testing will show you that they're in that lowest 30%, not the lowest 2%. Um, and but it's mostly a symptom thing for the women. Are your long COVID symptoms worse around your menses? Then you may need bioidentical estrogen and progesterone support around your menses. That way you'll reclaim that time of the month and you won't feel like death warmed over. So all of these hormones need to be addressed. And then hypotension, the POTS. The POTS is just, when we're a big bag of water, we stand up, gravity takes all our water, the blood sends it down to our legs. And the brain suddenly is going like, we have no blood coming in. And you get brain foggy, tired, and all the rest. And it can happen over time. Like you say, you're standing up for 20 to 45 minutes, you may start to see it. You don't need a $2,000 tilt table test. I recommend against it. It just makes people miserable. It's not reliable, and your insurance won't pay for it. There are simple free tests you can do at home. And just again, email me for the long COVID information. I'll send you a POTS information sheet. It'll tell
Okay.
you there'll be a simple Mayo Clinic journal quiz that will tell you in 2 minutes if you have it. There's a pulse test where you just lie down for 10 minutes and check your pulse lying and standing, and it'll tell you if you meet the criteria. And treatment is not difficult. Most doctors are not familiar, at least if you go to a university center, they're familiar with it. If you go to the cardiology department, and in the cardiology department, they'll have one or two people specializing in dysautonomia, and they'll go, oh, yes, you've got POTS. And they may be aware of one or two treatments. There's some places where the people are brilliant, but it's not there's no expensive medicine for it. So they don't,
Okay.
nobody's teaching them, but it's really easy on your own to take care of that. Infections, I'm starting to become kind of get my college nickname of Rambling Jack over here. So I'm going to just mostly point people in directions and give
Sure.
some very simple, quick things. for the infections. If you get
which is the eye. We're talking
the
about the eye now.
move into the eye. If you get chronic flu-like symptoms when you get your COVID flares, your long COVID flares, the antiviral protocols. Two medications, Famivir and Celebrex. It takes 4 months, but the research shows that really brings things back down under control, helps your body get the upper hand. If you have chronic nasal congestion, postnasal drip, irritable bowel syndrome, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, you have candida overgrowth. There's no test for it, but we go with the antifungals. If you think you have that, you can ask for the candida information sheet along with the others, and I'll tell you here the natural things you can do, and then the book will talk about the medications. You want to, each of these things takes another load off of your body. You don't have to clear up everything. You start getting rid of a couple of these things, and then your body can get strong enough to shake the rest of it off and to right itself. So there's many infections. Nutrition, the simply a good, most multivitamins are not so good. The one I would use, and I would write this down, is called the Energy Revitalization Drink Mix. That's what I take each morning. One simple drink. It's not super expensive or anything. It's one drink replaces over a dozen pills, and it critical foundation. I will add something called HRG80 red ginseng chewables. We did a study of 188 people, including half of those had post-viral fibromyalgia, and energy went up over 60%. Stamina increased considerably. Add something called Smart Energy System. We did another study that we're getting ready to publish where stamina went up over 80%. And then there's a chewable CoQ10. That's a very good 100 milligrams. You do those four. Most people, if you do those four things, even three of them, most of you, I think, will find that your energy will double within 3 to 4 weeks.
I mean, that's substantial.
That's substantial. That's massive. So it's like I say, you don't have to start with everything, but
Right.
that's in our study of the Smart Energy and the HRG80, sleep improved as well as brain fog. And
Right.
these are on the order of 60 to 80% improvements for each of these. But I would add the multivitamin to that, and then the CoQ10, just because I haven't studied that, but the other people have, and it's quite effective. Simple things you can do. You'll see the response quickly, well tolerated. Again, if you get too energized with these things, just lower the dose.
Oh, okay. So it could have that effect. Oh, okay. Well,
If you
that's,
if you
yeah.
can't get your gas pedal to go over 10 miles an hour,
Right.
and suddenly
Okay.
it's you
Yeah.
tune it up so that it's like suddenly
Yeah.
going to 90.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Back
yeah, you
off.
want to, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Okay. Now I understand. Sure. So,
And then E, exercise. Now, again, most of you have been told to exercise. You go out to exercise, you're bedridden for 3 days. You want to throttle the doctor who said that. So I'm going to add the words as able because you don't have enough energy to condition beyond a certain point. Instead, you crash and burn. It's called post-exertional malaise, and you're bedbound for a couple of days. And
yeah.
then you're afraid to do any exercise and you decondition, which is just as bad.
Yeah.
So see what you can comfortably do, even if it's just walking or whatever. There's those of you who are so sick you're bedbound. Email me, let me know that you're bedbound with it, and I will give you strategies, including how to exercise, even if in that situation. And there's
Right.
treatments like low dose Abilify, other things that seem to be, and treating the POTS, especially important in those of you that are bedbound. But most of you are the walking wounded. So do
Yeah.
whatever walking leaves you feel good, tired after, and better the next day.
Well, that whole energy thing, I get into trouble every single time I put any article on my social media that deals with exercise because
Hmm.
I know and you know, and I think most people know that you really need to be in tune with your body,
Yes.
be able to read it and not over exercise. But every time I put an article up, the person that is the most affected by long COVID and is bedbound thinks that that's an article that was written specifically to them, and they're very mad that I posted it.
Mhm.
Exercise is a very personal thing. Long COVID is a very personal thing, and you really need to know how to read your body.
Yeah.
I go out for walks, and I've gotten further and further and further. I think I'm
Mhm.
up to I can do 5 to 8K now, whereas a year ago I could maybe do two. you know,
Mhm.
so I mean it does work, but you got to know your own body.
And
And
some
yeah,
people can just do 50 steps, and some people can't even do that. And
exactly.
the problem there that happened is that you had a group of researchers who felt like, I don't know, it seemed to me that they're psychiatrists,
Right.
and they it was like, finally something that this belongs to psychiatrists. The other
Right.
specialties, they got their bread money baskets coming in. This is
Yeah.
our field, and anybody who says anybody's not a psychiatrist can treat it. And so, I mean, it was literally, they
Yeah.
were very nice people, but they were using the one of the most crappiest piece of researches I've ever seen, which is the exercise and gait studies in fibromyalgia, or CFS anyway, which was a horrible thing. And then they used it to try to say that you're not sick, you just need to exercise more. And that's why people are so pissed,
Yeah. Yeah.
understandably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you've got social media, and there's almost like it's almost like you should take a course on how to even understand what to sift through on social media, because that's probably it. I don't belong to very many patient support groups. And the reason being is there's far too much advice being thrown around by people that don't know what they're talking about. And then other people join these support groups. And I'm not slashing them all. I'm just simply saying be very careful when somebody is giving advice. Because when they're giving advice based on their experience, and it may be exactly opposite to what you require. This is where you got to bring in the pros. I mean, you just have to.
And Larry, I wish we could,
Yeah.
but most of the pros are basically caught into a mindset that, what we consider science and evidence-based medicine.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. This is slick pharmaceutical advertising masquerading as science. And people go to the doctor, and the doctor says, I don't know what's wrong with you, so you're crazy. And it's virtually impossible to get anything through a regulatory system that's cheap. It costs $400 to $2 billion to get the approval for any company that makes a product to talk about the research showing that product works.
Right.
So if they're making a cheap product, they can't talk about it for using it for disease. It's illegal.
Yeah.
They can't unless they pay 400 million or whatever the regulatory fee is for that level of thing. It's the only way they have is by talking to each other and saying, well, what worked for you? So I wish you were right that yes, you need to leave this to the experts. They
Well,
found that they can't.
okay, but I want to qualify what I'm talking about here when I say the experts is that the whole reason why I started doing this podcast was to bring on specialized people
Mm-hmm.
that can talk to the broader market. Yourself, Dr. Strasser in Switzerland, Ben Sinclair in the UK. There's a bunch of you out there that you're dedicated to the betterment, and you haven't got your hand out saying pay me first and then take care of me. You're putting out good information. That's the kind of experts I'm talking about. Is that leave it to the people that have seen 1,000 patients, 2,000 patients, 10,000 patients, and they understand that this is a big nuanced disease. This is not open up your computer and find your remedy. And it's certainly not, you can't sit in a group on Facebook with 200 people that have long COVID and even find two that are the same.
Each case is different. It's a
Yeah.
syndrome which has
Yeah.
things in common, but
Yeah.
how no two are the same. But I'm going to disagree with you here. What I'm going to say, Larry, is people are desperate. They're out looking, and sharing with each other is important. See what worked, but keep your wits about you.
Yeah.
If they're saying take a jump off the old world towers or some trade
Yeah.
center or something, don't do it. A biggest problem we're going to face is, okay, well, people are selling stuff. Everybody's trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to notice is the stuff I talk about, I will carry it on my website, but you can go on Amazon and get it. And except for the ribose, um, I don't make a penny on anything you buy on Amazon.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't sell these things on Amazon.
Yeah.
So if you want to go, well, how do I know he's not just trying to make a buck? Go on Amazon and get it instead of
Yeah.
my website. And
Yeah.
that's fine because this way you'll know. Say, well, he just wants to make money on the book. You're right. I'll make my $1.10 on the book. I will send that to charity. Buy the book, say you did that. I will
Yeah.
send the $1.10
Yeah.
to charity. What
Yeah.
my thing is with that. So where, and when you go to the doctor and the doctor says they don't know, virtually all of our medical education is coming from the pharmaceutical industry after we leave medical school. Seriously. This was a New England Journal of Medicine editor right before he quit or got fired,
Right.
who basically said that most continuing medical education is slick pharmaceutical advertising masquerading as science. I know
Right.
I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating. And these are good people. Your doctors are really, really good people. They really care. They really want to help.
Yeah.
But they're getting the same nonsense that we get watching the news. It's or watching Facebook or watching all the other places. It's you have to sort out. And I mentioned before that part of what I studied in college is how we know what you know. It's called epistemology. It's actually a field for that. And that's why I'm pretty sensitive to, okay, what's the basis? I will go to firsthand or I don't know. If I don't have the firsthand evidence, I don't know. And I'm very good at tearing even the studies apart to see what it actually shows. Because many studies are just garbage, but I'm
Yeah.
very good at sorting through. So use your wits, use your discernment as you go through. And so we'll have a friendly differing of opinion in terms of
I my experience has just been that people get desperate and they're willing to try desperate things and they don't have a wit to use.
yeah,
They're desperate. They're at the end of the
yeah,
rope. And there's a lot of people like that. And there isn't just a couple of them, there's millions of them. So when I'm asked for an opinion inside of a group, and the first thing I tell them is, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinician. What I am is a guy that posts a lot of research, and I'm a guy that goes out and interviews people that know this stuff.
yeah.
That's who I am. And I try to push them to those avenues for their support because it can get dangerous when you're doing things that are not good for you and you don't have a wit to play with.
So let me give you a number one thing, because most doctors are pointing you to places that say there's nothing you can do, send money and wait patiently.
Yeah.
Or there's this program we have for $50,000. It's basically a limbic retraining that you can do for $300 on your own. Um, so what I'm going to say is go watch Larry's stuff because he has screened people for you, and he's screening people who actually have, as you said, treat 1,000,
Yeah.
2,000, 5,000, ten
Yeah.
thousand people. They've done so successfully.
Yeah. There's the key. There's the key.
Yes. Then they
Yeah.
know. So I feel like one of the kids was like, 'cause I've only treated like 3,000, and
Yeah. You're one of the
and
new kids on the
and
block. Yeah.
and 90% of those, I say 85%, but it's really
Yeah.
90, I've treated successfully. So it's the people who have experience treating this know that this illness is very treatable. I've published 8 studies. Well, one is getting ready for, 2 are actually getting ready for publication, showing effective treatments.
Right.
This is very, very, very treatable disease. It's just that there's no single expensive treatment, which is what's needed to get it into medical awareness.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, I know it sounds
Yeah.
like a stupid thing to say, and I hate to be saying that after 50
Well,
years in medicine, but it's just kind of what it is.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I thank you for your time today, Jacob. I think this was a great add on to the first video. What I'm going to do in the footnotes is I'm going to make reference to the first video, perhaps watch it first and then watch this one second. And by the way, I'm glad that you're pushing the title of your book because I know you guys make nothing. Like anybody that is so ignorant to think that a doctor makes money writing a book and what have you, they don't realize the work that's gone into that. And like you say, you make $1.25 and you send it to charity. This is put out to help people. And that's the other reason why I get you back on is that you are an author. For gosh sakes, go read the book. It supports everything when you do that. It allows you to keep on writing books. And again, I think that please tell your staff that if you put out another book, I want you back on here.
I have 2 others now that I've written since, but they're not on long COVID.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, I get that, but if they happen to be anything adjacent to it,
yeah,
this is a very wide disease. It's not a narrow disease.
I
So,
wrote a book on how to pick out the best multivitamin
oh, did
because
you?
that's the foundation of N.
Okay.
So it's called Tired of Being Tired. It's not going to be out in bookstores and stuff yet. That just
Yeah.
came out. But I'll tell you what, instead of buying the book, the energy revitalization drink mix is
Okay.
based on the hundreds of studies that book was based on.
Okay.
So that way you know you've got a solid foundation for the vitamins, minerals, and cofactors.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jacob. I will talk to you again very soon.
Larry, always a pleasure. And
Yes.
again, for all of you guys out there, been there, done that.
Right.
This illness is optional, but I want to finish the same thing I finished in the other show. And as you get your health back, don't go and do all those plastic bags full of garbage paperwork that you had to put off, and don't catch up with all the stuff and all that stuff you hate doing that you manage not to do when you're sick.
Yeah.
You just prove to yourself you don't have to do those.
Yeah.
Let them
That's very
go.
true. Yeah. That's a
Use
great
your
piece of advice.
use your energy for what you love
Yeah.
and your passion,
Yeah.
and you'll look back and this illness will have turned out to be a real gift.
Okay. Thank you for those.
Welcome.
You take care. Bye bye.